The cherry blossoms had just begun to fade in Washington, D.C., on that crisp March morning in 2025 when Tulsi Gabbard, newly confirmed as the United States Director of National Intelligence under President Donald Trump, stepped into her office overlooking the Potomac. The room was sparse. Barely a desk, a chair, and a single American flag, but it buzzed with the weight of secrets. Tulsi, a former Democratic congresswoman turned Republican firebrand, had spent her first weeks in the role quietly, her piercing gaze and military-honed discipline unsettling the entrenched bureaucrats of the intelligence community. But today was different. Today, the game was about to change. She'd been handed the reins of America's 18 spy agencies. CIA, NSA, FBI, the works, with a mandate from Trump himself: drain the swamp, Tulsi. Root out the rot. He'd said it with that familiar squint, his voice gravelly over the phone from Mar-a-Lago, where he was prepping for his second term. Tulsi had nodded, her mind already racing. She'd seen the corruption firsthand. Years in Congress, deployments in Iraq, and a front-row seat to the political circus had taught her one thing. The system wasn't just broken. It was rigged. It started with a tip. A whistleblower from deep within the FBI, a grizzled agent named Mike Callahan, had slipped her a flash drive during a late-night meeting at a diner off I-95. "You're the only one I trust, Director," he'd whispered, his hands trembling as he slid the drive across the table. "They're covering it up. All of it." Tulsi had taken it without a word, her instincts screaming that this was the thread she'd been waiting to pull. Back in her office, she plugged the drive into a secure laptop, her heart pounding as files flooded the screen. Emails, audio recordings, financial trails. The data painted a picture so explosive it could topple giants. The FBI, it seemed, had been running a shadow operation for years, colluding with big tech titans, Silicon Valley CEOs whose platforms shaped the national narrative, to suppress dissent and protect a select few. And at the center of it all, a name that sent a chill down her spine: Hillary Clinton. The first file she opened was an email chain from 2016. Buried in a server the FBI had claimed was lost. It detailed a meeting between Clinton, then Secretary of State, and top brass at the Bureau. The subject line read, "Project Silent Patriot." The messages outlined a plan to monitor Trump's campaign, not just for dirt, but to fabricate it if needed. "We control the story," one email from Clinton read. "The Bureau ensures compliance. Tech amplifies it." Tulsi's jaw tightened. She'd long suspected the 2016 election was a circus of dirty tricks. But this was proof, raw, unfiltered, and damning. She clicked an audio file next. It was grainy, but the voices were unmistakable. A big tech exec, rumored to be from a company with a bird logo, spoke in hushed tones to an FBI deputy director. "We'll bury the leaks. Shadowban the accounts. Just keep the funding flowing." The deputy chuckled. "Hillary's got the donors lined up. This stays quiet and we all win." Tulsi's hands clenched into fists. The American people had been pawns in a game they didn't even know was being played. She leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't just a scandal, it was a betrayal of everything she'd fought for in uniform and in Congress. The FBI, big tech, and Clinton had woven a web of control, and now it was her job to tear it apart. But how? The swamp wouldn't go down without a fight. She picked up the phone and dialed Trump. "Mr. President," she said, her voice steady, "we've got them." The Oval Office smelled faintly of leather and coffee when Tulsi Gabbard strode in, the flash drive clutched in her hand like a live grenade. It was late past midnight on March 31st, 2025, and the White House was eerily quiet, save for the distant hum of a vacuum cleaner down the hall. President Donald Trump sat behind the resolute desk, his tie loosened, a Diet Coke sweating on a coaster. He looked up from a stack of papers, his eyes narrowing as Tulsi approached. "You said we've got them," he rasped. "Show me." Tulsi didn't waste time. She plugged the drive into a secure tablet and slid it across the desk. "This is bigger than Watergate, sir. It's the FBI, big tech, and Hillary Clinton caught red-handed." Trump's eyebrows shot up as she walked him through the files, the emails proving Clinton orchestrated a surveillance op against his 2016 campaign, the audio of big tech execs plotting to censor dissent, and bank records showing millions funneled through shell companies to keep the machine running. "They weaponized the Bureau," Tulsi said, her voice low but fierce. "And Silicon Valley was their megaphone. Trump leaned back, a slow grin spreading across his face. Beautiful. Just beautiful. I knew they were crooked, but this is a home run. He tapped the desk with a finger. What's your play, Tulsi? You're my DNI now. You call the shots on this one. She met his gaze, unflinching. We go public, sir. All of it. But we do it smart, control the narrative before they spin it. The next morning, Tulsi assembled her war room, a tight circle of loyalists she'd handpicked from the intelligence community. There was Mike Callahan, the whistleblower, his grizzled face etched with exhaustion but resolve, Sarah Nguyen, a young NSA analyst with a knack for decoding encrypted chatter, and Colonel James Jim Ryder, a retired Marine who'd served with Tulsi in Iraq and now advised her on strategy. They gathered in a soundproof bunker beneath Langley, the air thick with tension. Objectives simple, Tulsi began, pacing the room. We expose the conspiracy without giving the swamp time to counter. That means evidence drops, irrefutable, overwhelming, and everywhere. She pointed to Sarah. You've got the tech skills. Can you get this onto every platform before big tech shuts it down? Sarah nodded, her fingers already twitching toward her laptop. I can seed it through VPNs and encrypted channels. X will be our launchpad, it's the last free square left. Jim crossed his arms. What about the FBI? They'll come for us the second this breaks. I've seen how they bury leaks. Tulsi's lips pressed into a thin line. That's why we hit them first. I've got agents I trust, clean ones ready to raid their field office in DC tonight. We seize their servers before they scrub them. Mike chimed in, his voice rough. I've got names. Agents who'll flip if we lean on them. They're scared, Tulsi. They know the house of cards is falling. The plan took shape like a military op, simultaneous strikes, data leaks online, raids on FBI assets, and a press conference to hammer it home. Tulsi would face the nation, Trump at her side, and lay bare the rot. But as the team dispersed, a shadow flickered in her mind. Hillary wouldn't sit idle. She'd built this machine over decades, ruthless, connected, and slippery as hell. Tulsi glanced at the flag on the wall, its stars glinting in the dim light. Game's on, she muttered. The clock struck 2 a.m. on April 1, 2025, when Tulsi Gabbard gave the green light. Outside the FBI's Washington field office, a blacked-out convoy of SUVs rolled silently into position, their engines cut to avoid detection. Inside, a dozen hand-picked agents vetted by Tulsi herself for loyalty and grit checked their gear, body armor, sidearms, and warrants signed by a federal judge who'd nearly choked on his coffee when briefed hours earlier. The target? The Bureau's own servers, rumored to hold backups of the incriminating data Tulsi had uncovered. If they could seize them, the swamp's denials would collapse under the weight of cold, hard proof. Tulsi watched from a command van a block away, her breath fogging in the chilly air as she monitored live feeds from body cams. Colonel Jim Ryder sat beside her, his jaw set like stone. They'll fight dirty, he warned, his voice a low growl. Expect resistance. Tulsi nodded, her eyes locked on the screens. That's why we're moving fast. In and out before they can call in reinforcements. The raid kicked off with a bang, literally. A breaching charge blew the side door off its hinges and agents poured in, shouting commands over the blare of alarms. FBI! Hands up! Step away from the consoles. Most of the night shift froze, stunned to see their own turning on them, but a few bolted for the server room. One agent, a wiry guy with a buzz cut, reached a terminal and started typing, frantic, desperate. Tulsi's voice crackled through the comms. Stop him. Now. A burly agent tackled him mid-keystroke, pinning him to the floor as the screen flashed, delete in progress, aborted. Within 15 minutes, it was over. The servers, hulking black towers blinking with green lights, were secured, zip-tied to dollies, and wheeled out under armed guard. Tulsi exhaled, but the victory felt hollow. She knew this was just the opening salvo. Across town, Sarah Nguyen was already uploading the first wave of leaks to X, encrypted packets bursting onto the platform like digital fireworks. Hashtags like #SwampExposed and #TulsiTruth trended within an hour, fueled by patriots and conspiracy buffs alike. The Bird app lit up with screenshots of Clinton's emails, audio clips of big tech collusion, and furious demands for justice. But the counterattack came swift and brutal. By dawn, newsrooms loyal to the old guard, CNN, MSNBC, were spinning a narrative, Gabbard's rogue coup threatens national security. Pundits screamed about Trump's authoritarian purge while Silicon Valley's other giants, think blue logos and fruit icons, began throttling the leaks, shadow-banning accounts faster than Sarah could reroute them. Tulsi's phone buzzed with a text from Mike Callahan, Hillary's on the move. Private jet fueling at Dulles. She's running. Tulsi slammed the van door and turned to Jim. "Get me to Dulles. We're not letting her slip away." The drive was a blur of red lights ignored, sirens wailing as Tulsi's mind raced. Clinton had allies everywhere, deep state operatives, tech billionaires, foreign contacts. If she escaped, she'd regroup and this war would drag on for years. The airport loomed ahead, its tarmac glinting under floodlights. Tulsi spotted the jet, a sleek Gulfstream, taxing toward the runway. "Lock it," she barked, and Jim floored the gas, the van skidding onto the asphalt just as the plane's engines roared. She leapt out, badge in hand, shouting over the noise. "Director of National Intelligence. Shut it down." Airport security hesitated, then complied, rolling barricades into place. The jet stopped, its door cracking open. And there she was, Hillary Clinton, stepping onto the tarmac, her face a mask of icy fury. The wind whipped across the Dulles tarmac on that early morning of April 1, 2025, tugging at Tulsi Gabbard's jacket as she faced Hillary Clinton. The former Secretary of State stood at the top of the Gulfstream stairs, her white pantsuit pristine despite the chaos, her eyes glinting with a mix of defiance and disdain. Behind her, a pair of burly private security goons hovered, hands near their holsters. Tulsi's own team, Jim Ryder and a handful of loyal agents, fanned out, weapons drawn but steady. The air crackled with tension, a showdown straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. "You've got no jurisdiction here, Gabbard," Hillary snapped, her voice cutting through the roar of idling jet engines. "This is a private flight. Stand down or you'll regret it." Tulsi didn't flinch. She held up the flash drive, its tiny frame a symbol of the empire it threatened to topple. "I've got evidence, Hillary. Emails, recordings, bank trails, your fingerprints are all over it. The FBI's dirty ops, big tech censorship, all tied back to you. Game's over." Hillary's lips curled into a smirk, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "You're a soldier playing spy, Tulsi. You don't understand the board you're on. Walk away now and maybe Trump keeps you around as a lapdog." Tulsi stepped closer, her boots thudding on the asphalt. "I swore an oath to protect this country, not your secrets. You're done running." The standoff might have stayed verbal, but one of Hillary's guards twitched, his hand darting for his gun. Jim reacted faster, a single shot ringing out, dropping the man with a leg wound. Chaos erupted, shouts, scrambling agents, the second guard tackled to the ground. Hillary didn't move, her composure icy as ever, but Tulsi saw the calculation in her gaze. She was cornered and she knew it. Back in D.C., the leaks were spreading like wildfire. Saren Wen's uploads had broken through big tech's defenses thanks to a rogue network of ex-users, truckers, vets, moms who'd taken up the cause, reposting faster than algorithms could catch. Clips of Clinton's voice ordering narrative control played on loop while grainy photos of FBI brass meeting tech CEOs in Palo Alto went viral. The White House press room was a madhouse with Trump prepping to address the nation alongside Tulsi's evidence drop. On the tarmac, federal marshals arrived, summoned by Tulsi's call en route. They swarmed the jet, cuffing Hillary's team as she descended the stairs, her hands unbound but her fate sealed. "This isn't over," she hissed as she passed Tulsi. "You've just painted a target on your back." Tulsi met her stare. "Good. Let them come." By noon, the nation was glued to their screens. Trump stood at the White House podium, his voice booming. "Folks, we've caught the swamp with their pants down, big league. Director Gabbard's got the goods and we're cleaning house." Behind him, Tulsi laid out the evidence, timelines, names, dollar amounts. The crowd, press, staff, citizens watching live gasped as she played the audio of big tech plotting with the FBI. "This was a conspiracy against you, the American people," she said, her voice steady. "We're taking our country back." But even as cheers erupted, Tulsi knew the fight wasn't done. Deep state holdouts were digging in, tech moguls were lawyering up, and whispers of retaliation swirled. She glanced at Trump, who gave her a nod. "Round two's yours, kid," he muttered. She squared her shoulders. The swamp was wounded, but it was far from dead. The sun dipped low over Washington, D.C. on April 2, 2025, casting long shadows across the National Mall as Tulsi Gabbard stood in her office, staring out at the Lincoln Memorial. The past 48 hours had been a whirlwind. A raid, a tarmac showdown, and a press conference that shook the nation. Hillary Clinton was in custody, facing charges of conspiracy and treason, her jet grounded and her empire crumbling. The FBI's top brass were suspended, their offices raided by Tulsi's clean agents, while big tech CEOs scrambled to distance themselves from the leaked recordings, their stocks tanking as ex-users dubbed them the silencers. But Tulsi knew this was no victory lap. The swamp was a hydra, Cut off one head and two more would grow. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah Gwyn. They're hitting back. DDoS attacks on our servers. X is holding, but barely. Tulsi gritted her teeth. Big tech wasn't going quietly. Hordes of bots flooded the platform, drowning the leaks in noise, while hackers targeted government systems to erase the evidence. She called Sarah. Reroute everything through the NSA's backup grid. We can't lose this now. Sarah's voice crackled back. On it, boss. The people are with us, millions sharing offline, too. USBs, flyers, you name it. Downstairs, Mike Callahan burst in, his face flushed. We've got a problem. FBI loyalists are mobilizing armed, off-the-books units. They're calling it Operation Backstop. Word is they'll spring Hillary tonight. Tulsi's pulse quickened. She grabbed her coat and turned to Jim Ryder, who'd been quietly cleaning his pistol in the corner. Get the team. We're heading to the detention center. They don't get her out. The drive was tense, the city buzzing with unrest. Protests outside tech HQs, patriots waving flags, and sirens wailing as DC braced for chaos. At the federal lockup, Tulsi's convoy arrived just as shadows moved in the parking lot. Black-clad figures, ex-FBI, cutting through the fence. Engage! She shouted, and her team sprang into action. Gunfire erupted, sharp and staccato, as Jim took down two with precise shots. Tulsi ducked behind an SUV, her own service weapon drawn from her army days, barking orders. Flank them. Protect the perimeter. The skirmish was brutal but brief. 5 minutes later, the renegades were zip-tied, their plan foiled. Inside, Hillary sat in a holding cell, unruffled despite the chaos. Tulsi faced her through the bars. Your move failed, she said. Hillary's eyes narrowed. You think this ends with me? The system's bigger than one woman. Tulsi leaned in. Maybe, but it's weaker without you. By morning, the tide had turned. Trump declared a national emergency, deploying the National Guard to secure key sites, while Tulsi's leaks, now mirrored on countless drives nationwide, became unstoppable. Congressional hearings were fast-tracked, tech monopolies faced antitrust suits, and the FBI's overhaul began under Tulsi's iron grip. The American people, from heartland farmers to coastal truckers, took to the streets, not in anger, but in triumph, chanting truth wins. Back in her office, Tulsi sank into her chair, the weight of it all settling in. Jim handed her a coffee. You did it, Colonel. The game's over. She shook her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. No, Jim. It's just beginning. They'll adapt. We stay vigilant. Outside, the Capitol glowed under a new dawn, a symbol of a nation bruised but unbroken. Tulsi sipped her coffee, ready for the next fight. Because in America, the game never truly ends.